Hello there, it's Sundip, and in this small video we're going to look at how to punish poor queen moves in the Scandinavian defense. And so one of the hardest things in chess is to figure out how to put your opponent under pressure when they do dubious things. And this can be very difficult because your opponent obviously has resources to hold the position. And so specifically we're going to look at the move 3 Queen E5 check and 3 Queen E6 check. And so how did we get here? E4, D5, the Scandinavian defense, E takes D5, Queen takes D5, Knight C3. And you can see here in the Masters database, most players are going to play, these are the top players now, master level players, they're going to play Queen A5, Queen D6, Queen D8. And these are pretty much the only moves because other moves tend to be very dubious. However, if you go into the Lichess database, although players follow those moves, there's a lot of other stuff that happens as well. So for example, Queen E5 check and Queen E6 check. And we're going to look into how to punish them. And so now, let's say you have Queen E6. So visually, this looks bad for black because the light square bishop is being blocked by its own queen. The E pawn is being blocked. So how is this dark square bishop going to get into the game? It looks bad. However, it's not immediately hanging material. And so, I think Stockfish gives a +1 advantage for white. And now here, bishop e2, block the check. Obviously not with the queen and encourage a queen trade, which the simplification would only favor black. And now you can see the problems here for black. Black needs to get pieces into the game. And you can see the types of things black is doing. So black plays the move Queen G6, Knight C6, Knight F6, and they're all generally bad. So let's have a look at Queen G6. Queen G6 is basically making a threat on this G2 pawn. And many players with the white pieces are making the mistake of trying to protect this pawn, but you don't need to. You can go ahead and play the move Knight F3 and just invite black to take that pawn. That's pretty much a poison pawn. So after Queen takes G2, Rook G1, Queen H3, the problem now is black is very, very much behind in development. And here, d4 is a move, but the most threatening move you can make with the white pieces is bishop c4. Bishop c4 carries a threat. And the threat is bishop takes f7, king takes f7, knight g5 check, winning the queen. That's the threat. And you can see here people in the database to deal with this are playing the move bishop g4. But this doesn't work. Because after bishop takes f7, if the king moves, if black tries to be smart, then rook g3 just wins the queen. The queen has no escape squares. So the king is pretty much forced to take. And in this position, instead of playing knight g5 check and then the king moves and then knight takes h3, bishop takes d1, king takes d1, where you have an equal material game, a much stronger move in this position is just rook g3. And now the queen has one square, queen h5, and a very, very powerful move here is h3. And if your opponent knows how to deal with this, you probably want to reach for the report button because it's extremely tough. Bishop takes f3, rook takes f3 check. Let's say the king moves, and now rook takes f8 check, and obviously black has lost its queen. Alternatively, if black tries to be greedy and play the move bishop takes h3, then knight g5 wins the queen. That's check, and you have to play something like queen takes g5, rook takes g5, and obviously white is completely winning. So this idea of dealing with bishop c4 with bishop g4 is a pretty bad idea. Another idea that doesn't work is e6. Because now, after e6, this queen is sort of getting trapped in this side of the board. And you'll see how this could happen. And so instead of playing a move like rook g3, and then you have, say, queen h5, rook g5, queen h3, which kind of you're making no progress. You can just go ahead and, after e6, you can just go ahead and develop. And after, say, knight d6, knight f6, you have the very strong follow-up bishop f1. And now the queen has two squares. It has h5 and has f5. And if the queen goes to f5, you have rook g5, and that just wins the queen. Alternatively, if you go to h5, then you play rook g5 anyway, and now the queen has one square on h6. Rook e5, discovered attack on the queen. The queen has to move. Queen g6, but now bishop g5. And this is a very threatening position. Black is completely lost because you have this threat here, knight h4. Bishop d3 is a threat. And let's say you tried to I don't know, give your queen some breathing room. Let's say h6, bishop d3, queen h5, bishop takes f6, and now there's no time to take back because your queen is hanging, and black is completely lost. So this idea after queen e6 check of then moving the queen to g6 is one which is gonna get very problematic for black. And the key idea is to allow black to go ahead and take this pawn, just develop ordinarily with moves like knight f3, and then make threats with bishop c4, rook g1, and no doubt your opponent is going to make some kind of mistake. Also note in this position that after knight c6, this isn't a great move either. You can see what black is trying to do, maybe develop its queenside pieces, castle long, but it doesn't really work because after d4, there is a clear threat of d5, which is a fork. Knight f6 is not a defense, you just play d5 anyway, and your material is forked, and this pawn is being defended twice. And so in this position, the queen really has to move, but if you move, let's say queen d6, knight b5, and the queen has to move again, and bishop f4, okay, who wants to play a position like this? Now, notice that in positions like this, it can be difficult to break down your opponent. And so when I looked at the knight f6 lines, it's tough. So after knight f6, let's say knight f3 and g6 and d4 and bishop g7 and let's say castles and castles, it's not clear how white is going to win material quickly. Although if you turn on the engine, white is winning. It is about +1.5, +2. But it just illustrates the challenges of trying to break down your opponent if they find certain resources. So you might want to look into this knight f6 move after bishop e2 blocking the check and see what you make of it. So that's queen e6 check. Another dubious move is queen e5 check. This looks visually better for black because at least black has the option of developing the light squared bishop, but it kind of doesn't lead to much because now after bishop e2, and let's say they play bishop g4, the bishop can't take because it's pinned. A very strong move here is d4. That develops a piece, it hits the queen, and the queen has to be careful because this bishop is hanging. The queen is the only thing holding this pin together. And so you're going to get two types of moves in this position. You're going to get queen move to e6, but here f3, bishop f5, g4, bishop g6, and now f4 threatening this fork is very, very threatening. And black has to play the move, the awkward move f5. And again, who wants to play this position? This knight can't really develop because if it tries to develop, then we're going to have the follow-up knight b5. And yeah, this is a completely winning position for white. So alternatively, you could have bishop takes, instead of the queen moving, you could have bishop takes e2, and obviously you don't want to take the queen because then you lose the queen and you're down material. You have equal material, and that's just that simplification just helps black. So instead, knight takes e2 is a strong move, develops the king side pieces, gets ready to castle, and the queen is hanging. The queen has to move again, and you can see here people are playing the move queen h5 and queen a5, and both lead to problems. So after queen a5, a good idea here is to play queen d3 and basically take control over this b5 square, and you want to make this jump knight b5, and you know, obviously black cannot play moves like knight c6, knight b to d7 to try and long castle, because you're just going to play knight b5 and threaten this pawn. And so as an illustration, after something like this, black has to play this kind of awkward king move, and again, who wants to play a position like this? So instead, I think one of the moves here is just to play c6 to stop that, but c6 doesn't develop anything, and you can see some of the problems now black is getting into. Black is way behind in development. White is ready to castle, this bishop is coming out, etc, etc. So that doesn't work. After knight takes e2, another idea seems to be to play the move queen a5, and this doesn't work either. But what's interesting about this position is that many people, Stockfish has an amazing idea, which is to play the move b4, just hang a pawn. And you can see here in the lichess database, not many people play that move. So it's the third most popular move. People are doing other things like playing bishop d2 or castles, okay, which are not bad. But b4 is basically very threatening, because if you take, and let's say queen d3 and knight c6, rook b1, then you've basically opened up the lines to the black queen side. And does black really want to castle long and castle basically into an attack? It probably now wants to castle short. But if you want to castle short, you've got a lot of development to do here. The knight's got to get out, the bishop's got to get out. And so the black king, for a good amount of time, is going to be stuck in the center. So that's the idea around hanging this pawn on b4, is just to open up the lines. And if the queen wants to move again, well, you're just moving the queen again. And here, ordinary development moves tend to work, because you're moving your queenside pieces up the board. And again, if you have a similar issue to before, does black really want to castle long and into a potential pawn storm on the queen side? So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video, which looked at queen e5 check and queen e6 check. And if you have any thoughts on it, please do leave your comments below. Thank you very much for your time.